We know that poor sleep can lead to poor mental health, and we know that poor mental health causes poor sleep. So there isn't a single mental health or psychiatric condition that isn't associated with disrupted sleep. Every mental health condition that we know is associated with disrupted sleep. That doesn't mean, referring to the last point, that every single person with depression or anxiety or schizophrenia has sleep problems. But when we look at large populations of people with depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia, sleep problems are extremely common. So there's an association there. But we also know that people with insomnia, with sleep difficulties, who don't have mental health problems, are at much greater risk of developing mental health problems. So it's really this kind of two-way street that very often becomes a vicious cycle. So regardless of which started first, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. And sometimes people are clear. They say, yeah, I've had sleep problems for 2 years, and it's in the last year or so that I've felt depressed. And you can see that the sleep problem started, or vice versa. But quite often they kind of start at similar sorts of times. And it can become this really kind of horrible vicious cycle where the worse they sleep, the worse their mental health is, and the worse their mental health is, the worse they sleep, and it goes round and round and snowballs. And so they're very, very much interlinked. They're really inextricable part and parcel of the same kind of condition almost. But the thing that's and there's a real building body of evidence now to kind of suggest this. The kind of positive thing about it is that it works both ways. So we now know that treating somebody with depression or anxiety, treating their sleep problem just alone without addressing their mental health issue, has a really significant benefit for their mental health, to a similar sort of level as treating them with antidepressants. So it works two ways in both directions. And this is something that is really kind of part of our mission at the Sleep Project, is to raise the profile of sleep and of sleep interventions in the public, but also in medical circles, in healthcare circles, because for a long time there are very few people trained to deal properly with sleep problems in this country, and the reason for that is, for a long time the medical world has kind of ignored sleep, really, because for decades we thought that nothing much happened during sleep, that it was a time when the brain kind of shut down, everything kind of switched off, and we just kind of rested and regenerated, ready for the next day. So it was really kind of ignored for decades. It was only in the kind of 50s, 60s that, particularly when we discovered REM sleep, that scientists started to think, there's actually something going on here. And there's loads going, that kind of description of sleep being something where we shut down and nothing happens could not be further from the truth. There is loads going on in our brain and body when we're asleep. And in fact, the brain waves during REM sleep are almost indistinguishable from our brain waves when we're awake. Our brains are incredibly active during this time. And so the study of sleep has started much later than the study of other things. So, in medicine, there's obviously there's always things to learn and there's always research, but we know so much. There's very little left to know about how the kidney works and how the heart works and how the liver works. But actually, we're only just starting to scratch the surface of how sleep works. And so it's a really exciting time in sleep science, but we're starting from a much further point back than most other healthcare specialties. So that's part of our mission, really, is to educate the healthcare world as well about the impact of sleep problems, but also the fact that we can do something about it. We're out of the dark ages now. For decades, doctors have felt that the only thing that they can do for sleep problems is prescribe sleeping tablets, which is a really unsatisfactory thing. They don't work very well. They don't give us natural sleep, and they can be addictive. And now there are a number of treatments for sleep problems, both medication, pharmaceutical wise, and non medication treatments like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBTI, for insomnia, which is completely different from cognitive behavioral therapy for depression and anxiety. It's very much its own thing. It's a completely different kettle of fish. So there are lots of really, really effective treatments for sleep problems. And we now know that treating the sleep problem alone will have a really significant impact on somebody's mental health. So we need to get that message out there, and the government and NHS England, Department of Health, need to make these treatments available, because we know that mental health is horribly underfunded and under resourced. So there are really kind of effective treatments that can help people. So that's part of our mission at the Sleep Project, to kind of break down some of those barriers.